The notification appeared on Emily Hartwell's phone at 2:08 a.m. A simple alert from her Ring doorbell camera. Motion detected at your front door. She was half asleep when she reached for the phone on her nightstand, squinting against the brightness of the screen in the darkness of her bedroom. She expected to see a raccoon, maybe a late package delivery that FedEx had finally gotten around to dropping off. Perhaps just the wind shifting the welcome mat her mother-in-law had given them last Christmas. What she saw instead made her blood run cold. A man was standing on her porch, not moving, not knocking, just standing there, staring directly into the camera lens with an expression that would haunt her for months afterward. His face was calm, too calm, like someone who had done this before and knew exactly what he was doing. Emily's hand trembled as she watched the live feed. The man glanced over his shoulder once, then twice, checking to make sure no one was watching from the street. Then he stepped closer to the door with movements so deliberate, so controlled, that Emily felt her stomach drop. This was not someone who was lost. This was not someone looking for help. This was a predator who had chosen her home, her family, her sleeping children down the hall. And the worst part, the detail that police would later describe as the most chilling element of the entire case, was that he was not alone. Have you ever felt that moment of pure terror when you realize danger is closer than you ever imagined? When everything you thought was safe suddenly feels exposed? If you want to see more real surveillance footage that catches criminals in the act, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. These stories are more common than you think, and the footage doesn't lie. Emily Hartwell and her husband, Marcus, had moved to this quiet suburban neighborhood in Nevada 3 years ago. They'd chosen it specifically for its safety ratings, its good schools, its friendly neighbors who waved from their driveways and hosted block parties every 4th of July. It was the kind of place where people still left their garage doors open during the day, and kids rode their bikes until the streetlights came on. The Hartwells had 2 children. Sophie was 8 years old, obsessed with gymnastics and the color purple. Her younger brother Ethan had just turned 5 and was still at that age, where he believed his father could protect him from anything. Marcus worked as an engineer at a tech company downtown. Emily ran a small online business from home, which meant she was almost always there when the kids got home from school. They were, by every measure, a normal American family, living a normal American life. But normal ended at 2:08 a.m. on a Tuesday in October. Emily normally kept her phone on silent at night. She'd learned the hard way that late-night notifications about social media comments and email promotions weren't worth the disrupted sleep. But that night, for reasons she still can't explain, she'd forgotten to switch it off. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was luck. Maybe it was something else entirely. Whatever it was, it saved her family's life. When she saw the man on her porch, her first instinct was to scream. But something stopped her, some primal survival mechanism that told her making noise might be exactly what he wanted. If he heard movement inside, if he knew someone was awake and watching, he might escalate. He might act faster than she could respond. Instead, she reached over and shook her husband's shoulder. Marcus came awake instantly, the way parents do when something in the air feels wrong. Emily didn't say a word. She just handed him the phone, the live feed still playing on the screen. Marcus watched for 3 seconds. That was all it took. "Get the kids," he whispered. "Back bedroom. Now." Emily slipped out of bed, her bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. She moved down the hallway like a ghost, opening Sophie's door first, then Ethan's, gently shaking them awake and pressing a finger to her lips before they could ask questions. Within 90 seconds, all 4 members of the Hartwell family were huddled in the master bedroom's walk-in closet, the door closed, the children wrapped in blankets and told to stay absolutely silent. Marcus dialed 911. The stranger on the porch had no idea any of this was happening. The doorbell camera continued recording, capturing every moment of what investigators would later describe as a coordinated abduction attempt. At 2:09 a.m., the man shifted his weight from one foot to the other. His right hand slid into his jacket pocket and stayed there, hidden. His head turned sharply to the left, looking towards something at the edge of the property. That's when the camera's motion sensor picked up movement in the corner of the frame. A second figure, partially concealed behind a car parked in the driveway, waiting. The man on the porch gave a slight nod, almost imperceptible, a signal, a cue. This was not a random encounter. This was not a confused stranger or a drunk neighbor who had wandered to the wrong address. This was a team. Two people working together with a clear objective and a practiced method. One person approaches the door, knocks, waits for someone to answer. The moment the door opens, the second person moves in from the blind spot. Before the homeowner even realizes what's happening, both attackers are inside. Police would later explain that this technique is terrifyingly effective. Homeowners who wake to knocking at odd hours often assume it's an emergency, a neighbor with car trouble, someone who needs to use a phone, a lost traveler looking for directions. The instinct to help overrides the instinct to protect. And by the time the victim realizes their mistake, it's already too late. But the Hartwells never opened that door. If you're watching this and feeling your heart race, imagine being Emily Hartwell in that closet, phone pressed to her ear, whispering to a 911 dispatcher while a stranger stood just 30 feet away, waiting for her to make a fatal mistake. This is why these videos matter. This is why awareness saves lives. If you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel for more real surveillance footage, breakdowns. Marcus stayed on the line with the 911 dispatcher, his voice barely above a whisper. He described what he was seeing on the Ring app. Two suspects, one at the door, one in the driveway. No visible weapons, but the man's hand was in his pocket, and Marcus wasn't taking any chances. The dispatcher told him patrol units were already in the area. This wasn't the first suspicious door call they'd received that night. Two other homes in the neighborhood had reported similar activity in the past hour. Motion detected on cameras, strange figures lingering at the edge of properties, cars driving slowly through the streets with their headlights off. Something was happening in this neighborhood, and the Hartwells had become the primary target. On the porch, the stranger was growing impatient. The camera captured him leaning forward, pressing his ear against the front door, listening for sounds of movement inside. His breath was visible in the cold night air, short puffs of white vapor that marked each exhale. He stayed like that for nearly 30 seconds, listening, waiting, calculating. Then he reached for the doorknob. Emily watched on the phone screen as his hand closed around the brass handle. She saw him twist it. She saw him push. The door didn't move. Thank God the door didn't move. Marcus had double-checked the locks before bed, the way he did every night, a habit that Emily sometimes teased him about. She would never tease him about it again. But here's the part that haunted Emily the most, the part that still wakes her up in cold sweats months later. When the door didn't open, the man didn't flinch. He didn't panic. He didn't look frustrated or surprised. He smiled, a slow, knowing smile that spread across his face like he was enjoying a private joke. Like this was exactly what he expected. Like he was testing the door not because he thought it would open, but because he wanted to confirm something. That smile told Emily everything she needed to know. This man had done this before. Many times. He had a system, a method, a routine. And tonight, her family had been chosen. At 2:11 a.m., the camera detected motion near the driveway. The second figure was moving, stepping out from behind the car, getting closer to the house. Two of them now, both visible on camera, both converging on the front entrance. The dispatcher's voice in Marcus's ear was calm but urgent. "Units are 2 minutes out. Stay where you are. Do not engage. Do not let them know you're aware of their presence." 2 minutes, 120 seconds, an eternity when predators are circling your home. The stranger on the porch cocked his head, as if hearing something. His smile faded. His body tensed. Then Emily heard it too. The distant sound of tires on pavement, moving fast. Police lights spilled across the street, red and blue splashing against the houses, cutting through the darkness like a lighthouse beam. The stranger turned. He looked directly at the camera one more time, that unsettling gaze burning through the lens. Then he made a sharp gesture toward the second figure, a command, a signal to run. Both men bolted. They sprinted across the lawn, vaulted the fence into the neighbor's backyard, and disappeared into the maze of properties that made up this quiet suburban neighborhood. The whole retreat took less than 5 seconds. Officers were out of their vehicles before the cars fully stopped. Flashlights swept across yards. Commands were shouted into radios. Boots pounded on pavement and grass as police fanned out through the neighborhood. The first suspect was caught almost immediately. He'd tried to hide behind a shed 3 houses down, crouched in the shadows, breathing hard. An officer found him within 90 seconds of the chase beginning. The second suspect wasn't so easy. He knew the neighborhood, or at least knew how to disappear. He was gone into the night, swallowed by the darkness between streetlights. But he wouldn't stay free for long. What police found in the first suspect's possession would change everything. Inside the captured suspect's backpack, officers discovered zip ties, heavy-duty ones, the kind designed for industrial use. Impossible to break without tools. Next to them, a roll of duct tape, silver, brand new. There was also a folded piece of paper with an address written on it, the Hartwell's address. This wasn't a random crime of opportunity. This was planned, researched, targeted. During questioning, the suspect, later identified as 34-year-old Kevin Myers, initially refused to speak. He demanded a lawyer, sat with his arms crossed, stared at the wall with that same unsettling calm that had appeared on the doorbell camera. But investigators had leverage. They had the footage. They had the backpack. They had witnesses from other homes in the neighborhood who had reported similar suspicious activity. And they had something else. In the alley behind the neighborhood, police found an abandoned vehicle. A white van with the license plates removed. Inside, more zip ties, more tape, a blanket, and a child's car seat that had been modified. The harness reinforced, the straps lengthened.
This van wasn't for robbing houses. It was for taking people. Kevin Myers was not a burglar. He was part of something far more sinister, a network that police were only beginning to understand. And the Hartwell family, with their predictable routines and their house at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, had been selected. When confronted with the evidence, Myers' composure finally cracked. Not completely, he was too experienced for that, but enough to let something slip. "We weren't there to take anything from the house," and he said. "We were waiting for someone to open the door." The implication was clear. They weren't there for property. They were there for people. Have you ever watched footage like this and wondered what you would do in the same situation? Would you open that door at 2 a.m.? Would you check the camera first? Would you have the presence of mind to gather your family and hide while predators circled outside? These are the questions that keep parents awake at night. Subscribe to this channel if you want to see more real surveillance footage that shows how quickly ordinary nights can turn into nightmares, and how smart decisions can mean the difference between life and death. The investigation into Kevin Myers and his accomplice, who was eventually caught 3 weeks later in a neighboring state, revealed a pattern that stretched back months. They had been operating in suburban neighborhoods across the region, targeting homes with specific characteristics: families with young children, houses at the end of quiet streets, properties with minimal exterior lighting. They had a system. One would approach the door, sometimes knocking, sometimes just waiting. The other would position themselves to block escape routes. If someone opened the door, especially a woman home alone with children, They would strike fast and hard. In most cases, their potential victims had been saved by locked doors and cautious decisions, but investigators suspected there were cases that hadn't ended so well. Cold cases in neighboring jurisdictions that suddenly took on new significance. The doorbell camera footage from the Hartwell home became a key piece of evidence in the prosecution. Every moment, the approach, the smile, the coordinated signals, the retreat was analyzed and presented to the jury. Kevin Myers was convicted of attempted kidnapping, conspiracy, and a host of related charges. His accomplice received a similar sentence. Both men are currently serving decades in federal prison. But for Emily and Marcus Hartwell, the legal resolution didn't bring complete peace. They installed additional security cameras, motion-activated lights, a reinforced front door. They taught Sophie and Ethan what to do if they ever saw a stranger outside. They created safe words and emergency plans. The innocence of their quiet suburban life had been shattered, and no amount of security equipment could fully repair it. Emily still thinks about that smile sometimes, the way the man looked directly into the camera, knowing he was being recorded, and smiled anyway. It was the smile of someone who believed he would never be caught. Someone who had done this enough times to feel invincible. But he was wrong. And the reason he was wrong was a doorbell camera and a mother who, for reasons she still can't explain, forgot to silence her phone that night. If you're watching this, there's a good chance you have a doorbell camera or some kind of home security system. But do you actually check the alerts? Do you take them seriously at 2 a.m. when you're tired and assume it's just a raccoon? The Hartwell's case is proof that those alerts matter. That technology, when used correctly, can be the barrier between a normal night and a nightmare. This footage has been viewed by millions of people since it was released. It's been featured in training sessions for police departments and security companies. It's become a case study in how criminals operate and how potential victims can protect themselves. But the most important lesson isn't about cameras or locks or security systems.
It's about awareness. It's about trusting your instincts when something feels wrong. And it's about not giving a stranger the benefit of the doubt at 2 a.m., no matter how believable their story sounds. The Hartwell family did everything right. They stayed calm, they stayed quiet, they protected their kids and called for help. They didn't try to be heroes. They chose survival, and because of that choice, 4 people are still alive. If you're still watching right now, that means you understand something most people don't. These real clips aren't just stories. They're warnings. Lessons that could save your life or someone you love when you least expect it. And if you want to stay prepared, really prepared, then don't leave without subscribing. Because the truth is this, the next video I upload might be the one that teaches you what to do in a moment you never see coming. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And now I want to hear from you. If you were in Emily Hartwell's situation, what would you have done? Would you have checked the camera, opened the door, stayed quiet? Drop your answer in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. I read every single one.